Hello, everyone. Welcome to an addition to the Regenerative Roundtable. So this is a session focused most on the Relaunch Project. There's a whole lot of excitement about this proposal on all sides. So this is a space for us to go a little bit deeper, ask any questions, discuss anything that's confusing for us so that we want to go deeper, or it's really mostly about understanding the current proposal, why it's here, and getting a better idea of the project itself. And then we have Satya and John with us today, who have volunteered to host tomorrow's session, which is more about evolving this proposal and coming up with ways to improve upon it, reimagine what the Seeds 2.0 launch could look like if we're even going to do it, and all of that stuff. So we might have time for some element of that today, but first we want to make sure that we all understand why is this proposal even coming out here, and making sure we're on the same page to begin with. Yes, that's my intention, but I'm really happy if anyone else has a different proposal for how this might go. And if you do, then just feel free to put your hand up or unmute yourself and chime in. Otherwise, you can signal your support by just giving me a thumbs up if you like this model for today. Cool. Lots of hearts and thumbs up. Great. Then what I'm going to do is, just before we get started, mostly because it's 10 o'clock at night for me and I need to warm my brain up still because it's been a long day. What I can do is, if you put your hand up and if you have any burning questions about this proposal, things you didn't know, we could actually start off with a little bit of a Q&A, and then I'll dive in and explain a little bit more about the proposal. So does anyone have any big questions to kind of trigger a discussion? Cool. Bart has a hand up. If anyone else wants to ask any questions to start this off, just feel free to put your hand up. And I will pass it to you, Bart.
Yeah, one question that I have is because for Seeds 2.0 now it's locked at the 21st of September. So if I understand well, then everything we do now in terms of trading seeds is not worth anything in Seeds 2.0, right? So that means it's kind of a pause in being able to use seeds if we believe in 2.0.
I want to elaborate something that's really important about this proposal, is that it's not complete. It's about halfway complete, but there's been parts that have been intentionally not finished because that was something we all had to come up with. So everything up until that September snapshot date is what I'm looking for. That's what we had currently built into the proposal. But whatever happens from now until a relaunch, if we do that, that's something for all of us to come up with and decide what we should do about that. Because that was the undecided part. Why there had to be all these kind of theatrics about this proposal is because of that snapshot date. So we wanted to make sure everyone was on the same footing, because if we're saying everything before September 21st, we're going to consider this. We wanted everyone to get that information at the same time. So now that we all understand what's going on, we can design what September 21st to December 21st actually looks like. So yeah, what happens with the seeds that we're using right now, different campaigns and all of that stuff, I don't know. It's not part of this proposal, and that's something that we could all come up with. Part of the current proposal is that all the campaign seeds that have been earned previously would go into D-seeds, but maybe we don't want to do that. And there's been some feedback that says, all right, well, those are, we've used those campaign seeds to start circular local economies. So if we turn all their D-seeds or seeds into D-seeds and they don't have them anymore, then what? That's a really awesome idea, or really awesome criticism. And I've heard some really awesome ideas about how we could solve that, such as we can actually look at how many transactions people have done. So if people have been actually doing circular economy stuff and exchanging with each other, let's give them all the bonus of seeds so that they don't actually miss any seeds and actually get more seeds for all that stuff they've been doing so far. Anyway, there's a million ways we can go about fixing this. And that's actually what I want to make sure we're really diving into tomorrow's session or later in today, about how we can continually improve this so that we all feel really good about it. Because I understand people are looking at this proposal as if it's fixed, saying, well, this is super unfair, this is terrible, I hate this, and all these really strong words, which I totally get, but I really want to elaborate that if there's any energy that's feeling that way, then let's identify why you're feeling that way and come up with, a change of this proposal so that it's no longer terrible. So again, if you feel like it's going to be terrible to take seeds away from people who are doing circular economies, let's figure out a way to make sure that we're giving seeds back to those folks so we don't miss out on that benefit. Yeah, that's my long-winded answer to that question. Was that helpful?
Yeah, I just also want to say I at first also had my thoughts about the proposal, but I really like what you've been building, and I really like the foundation that has been set there, and I really believe that with working together we can make something that makes seeds a lot more beautiful than it is today.
So yeah, I mean, I wanted to have this dialogue because it would trigger important things for me to talk about. So I do want to set the stage just a little bit more. In my heart, when I went about proposing this relaunch, I thought it was going to be really exciting because I looked at it as, a time to integrate all the learnings from the last couple of years, build a healthier foundation, and give everyone the same footing to get in on the same floor. We have so many different alliances that haven't come in yet that feel like they've missed the bus, that it's not theirs anymore. This is kind of our time to say, actually, you haven't. We're going to rebuild this together and you can all come with us. So it's kind of a period that could be really exciting, could come with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and kind of give the launch that Seeds deserves. The first launch was, not as climatic as, I would have liked it to be, because I think this is really awesome and huge. So this is one that I wanted it to be community-led, which is another big reason why this proposal is not complete. I could never have come up with a complete proposal because that's preposterous. It's not on me to come up with the complete proposal. I have one perspective. I put that perspective into a proposal. I asked, maybe 8 or 9 people to upgrade that proposal. They did. We did a little bit that they didn't even come on consensus with this particular proposal. So it's still very much incomplete. And I really hope that we evolve it a lot over the next month to find something that we really love. And embodying that being the energy of what do we want our launch to look like? How can we reinvigorate this project, get more enthusiasm, excitement behind it, bring in all our allies at the ground level, et cetera, et cetera. Is that helpful for me to elaborate on that? Do we want to go any deeper on the reason why? No, cool. Michael, you got your hand up.
Thanks, Rieki. I think you may have covered some of this, but I'm really keen to hear a little bit more context as to what has triggered this relaunch. And to give my question context, in the previous version of Seeds, I've always felt that I can't really play at the level that I'd like to, because I want to work with extremely underprivileged communities, many of whom don't have smartphones. And that's the first barrier to entry in Seeds. So a 1 minute, very high level summary as to what triggered this particular relaunch would be useful to me, but it's an unfair question because I've been out of circulation for 2 weeks with very poor internet connection, and I will probably find some answers if I just go back and listen to everything that's been recorded since then. If you're able to give a 1 minute overview as to why or what has triggered this relaunch, that would be useful to me. Thanks.
So quite a bit of things, and I tried to elaborate them in the proposal itself, but I could do a really quick answer to that. I think the biggest and most important one is the last couple of years have been an experiment. All of this is experiment. I think that's the most important thing we're doing together is we're learning together. We're creating community, we're going on a learning journey, and we're trying to figure out how to build a regenerative economy. So the biggest picture here is that there's a very, very tiny chance that we actually did it right the first time. I don't think we did in a lot of cases. We left some people behind. That the Seeds model with the price appreciation, we capped it because I felt that the old model of infinite returns and massive value gained on that first investment, that's not necessarily equitable. Take Bitcoin, for example, it's had like 100,000% increase. Like that's just enormous. $1 invested at the beginning would be $100,000 today. So actually more than that. So that's the first model, is if our go live point, that point where the price of seeds stopped appreciating, ended at around $1.30, $2, wherever we actually ended at, then it's taking from a penny up to that point, which means the first people coming in would get 130 to 200x, which is still fantastic for taking on that risk. But when we got into 10 cents, then what we're actually saying is like, okay, people coming at this level maybe get 13 to 20x. So that's 130 down to 13. So there's a 10x drop there, right? From the potential increase that people could get. So when I'm looking at us getting to 10 cents and seeing that, hey, we only have 8,000 accounts, and we only have like 500 accounts holding, a meaningful amount of seeds, like $1,000 or more. So that's tiny. If we're talking about creating a new regenerative economy that's representing the regenerative renaissance writ large, and we have 1,500 people who are going to see a substantial return here, that's a failure in my book. So that's why I'm saying I think we need to relaunch and make sure a lot more people are able to, get in on the ground floor. A lot of other projects say, fine, you missed the bus, you weren't the first one. I got in early and my gains are huge, so I'm happy and forget about everyone else. I hate that, so that's kind of what keeps me up at night, is I'm looking at this and being like, this isn't going to get the critical mass that we need. There's not enough people that are going to get enough big enough return. This isn't decentralizing abundance. I just didn't feel like it was the right frame. On top of that, there's so many different alliances that we haven't issued seeds out to. The original model was they were supposed to get their seeds at about a penny too, and they were supposed to see that price appreciation come along with growing this. But a lot of reasons, technical being the biggest one, we haven't had those alliances come in yet. So now that all the tools are actually working, and we can do alliance proposals and voting is actually working, and like the tools are here, I'm saying, all right, well, why don't we actually go back, do a relaunch and reset healthier foundations so it is much more distributed. There's another element there that we've been doing governance for the last couple of years, but everyone knows that are on this call that, governance hasn't been easy. When our constitution was up for vote, I had people messaging me being like, hey, the app's not working, I can't vote on the constitution. That's entirely broken in my world. If you're not able to actually reflect your voice, then you don't have a voice. And then we're just saying people who are willing to put up with the effort of figuring out the tools are the only ones that have a voice. And that's been with a lot of campaigns and alliances and how we've distributed seeds. There's been all sorts of barriers. So from that lens, it's also probably worthy of having a reset. We look back at some of the original campaign proposals and we saw multi-million-dollar or multi-millions of seeds, which if this is successful, we're talking multi-millions of dollars of seeds that maybe 10 people voted for and it passed. That's not a decentralized governance system. A lot of those seeds are sitting in individual accounts. They didn't actually use them for what they said they were going to use them for. Maybe some of them even left. So now we have huge amounts of seeds sitting in folks' accounts that aren't even really part of the project anymore. And that's just like, so anyway, there's a lot of things just like that that look like, why don't we take the learnings from the last couple of years, redesign an economic model that really works for us, making sure that we put this offer out into the community so more people can participate. And if I have to make a little bit more of a pitch, this isn't necessarily altruistic. Like it sounds altruistic, but if you don't want to think that way, there's a really pragmatic approach too, because networks are only as valuable as how big the network is. The most successful networks are the ones that are able to get a really wide distribution. So a lot of people feel like this is theirs. They're at the heart of it. They're at the core of it. They're getting the most value out of it. And again, if we only have a couple hundred people who have a really substantial amount of seeds, then our really core community right now is a couple hundred people. That's a failure in my world. If we're building a regenerative economy for the regenerative renaissance, like we need to have tens of thousands of people that are at the core that are getting the real benefit of it. So that's why another idea of a relaunch is I really love for these next few months for us to focus on getting in our alliances, actually make sure we're inviting people. And then everyone who comes in over the next couple months, they're getting that 2-cent price. They're able to kind of get it on the ground floor. They don't get the 1-cent price anymore. That's for the first, early adopters. But then the early adopters doubled their money. Awesome. I think that's really equitable. That's really generative. That makes sense to me. But we're still giving that 2-cent price. All of this is, super, in my opinion, undervaluing seeds, because at a 2-penny price for seeds, we're saying we're the top like 2,000 crypto projects out there. So if you think seeds is worth more than the next 2,000 projects, then this is undervaluing what seeds are worth. And that's exactly what we want to be doing right now, because if the whole thing is we're giving seeds out to regenerators to decentralize abundance and see them grow value with us, well, they need to hold on to seeds. They need to be able to get them at that 2-cent price, right? So all of these things and more is why I think it makes sense to, that a relaunch could be really, really healthy for seeds. But, most importantly, and I didn't communicate this well the first time around, is we all need to do it together. There's something that I kind of missed because I'm a little bit focused on economics, but the most important thing we're doing in here is building community, is coming together, going on a learning journey, and building these new tools together. And I think that's probably the most exciting part about doing a relaunch, is that we all get to decide the relaunch. The first launch around, it was probably 90% my thoughts and 10% some other people in Haifa. I think that's a terrible ratio. I would love to see this relaunch be 10% my thoughts, which is what I put on a proposal now, and 90% the rest of the community coming in and making it theirs. Final piece, because I'm dragging this out, but I think it's important. I saw a comment on Discord that was saying they hated this. They think the whole proposal needs to be scrapped, and part of my mind's like, oh, get offended. I'm like, wait, time out, not offended at all. I think this is an awesome idea. If other proposals come up that say this relaunch proposal completely sucks, let's come up with another one. That's exactly what I want to see happen from this. But what's most important is that whatever proposal we actually get behind is getting the most energy from the community. And maybe we do have two and we go 2 different ways. But anyway, that's my, again, really long-winded answer to try to provide more context. That's helpful. Thanks for the question. John.
Actually, Satya.
It's actually me. I
Gotta add
just
both
wanted
your
to
names to
share.
the name tag there.
All right, we have to change
yeah,
that.
sorry. We always forget to do that. I just wanted to share kind of what space we were in this morning. And, I think it continues with what you were saying, Rieki, is about really putting the innovator's hat on here, that and creator's hat for all of us. And we had a lot of fun. We were just kind of bouncing, like I said, talking to John, did you look at the proposal? And we had some really fun time kind of imagining how we might, shift the proposal and have certain ideas about planting seeds. So, if we spent money early on in the game, our hearts, the bottom line is our hearts are in it. And that, there might be a way to say, okay, if you stand to gain, maybe you plant some of those seeds. Maybe you dedicate a certain percentage to alliances and partnerships, because that's really what we're up to. I mean, for us, and to really get a pulse on the people that were the, early investors, and say, what are you in it for? And what are you willing to do to support the foundation, the soil, so that it can build, so it's strong and sturdy and has roots, So anyway, I just wanted to, we had fun. We bounced ideas around. We were like in this incubator of creativity. So that's what I would sort of invite us all into is, yeah, there's something there. Here's a story about an idea, and let's create. Let's have some fun. That's me.
I think that's a little taste of what people might be in for tomorrow's session too, that you two are going to hold some beautiful space for. Any other thoughts, feedback, questions, any prompts of anything you want me to discuss? Julio.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I was amazed by the way the proposal came to us in the roundtable, and that was a bit shocking because there was the surprise effect and the secrecy about it. I understand the need for that too, but I think that's basically what caused all this reaction kind of against it in a way. But I also see value in that. The way of shocking us actually brought some energy for us to be able to wake up, from this lethargy, of, just allowing seeds to kind of uh, deteriorate in a way, because, there was a lot of bad things happening and the sales kind of halted. It was kind of dwindling, and there was few we could do about, and all this new energy is here to help us recreate this and re-energize the movement that we want to see. uh, and this is a great opportunity in my perspective. One thing that I may wanted to bring is regarding the deferred seeds idea, because I kind of implemented a couple of community currencies already, and the most key part of the success of these projects was the idea that you can't kind of cash out of the currency before it's too soon. Otherwise, people will just, people with more currency will just become, um, well, they do just want to bridge to the fiat currencies, and that could deteriorate the ecosystem. So maybe the idea is that all these seeds before go live, they would be kind of these seeds. They would be deferred seeds, right? So that I think this is part of the Seeds 2.0 proposal in a way. But so you can't sell that for fiat until it's ready to be done in this way. I mean, of course, everyone can do this in the side market if they want, but we don't offer easy ways for people to cash out seeds yet in the beginning. But we should offer ways for people to trade seeds, to swap seeds between themselves. I mean, if I want to pay you in seeds, I can, but I can't transfer seeds and swap that for Bitcoins or other currencies in an easy way. I mean, and this way we kind of alleviate the seller pressure. We only get a lot of buyer pressure, people wanting to buy seeds because it's growing, because it's financing great regenerative projects, but we don't offer too many ways for people to sell out, and that could be a strategy for this new currency. We kind of had that before Uniswap. The only way the main way to buy seeds was through the Haifa sale, and there was no really good way for you to sell seeds unless you went through the Telegram channel. It was kind of cumbersome. Most people didn't want to go through that hassle, and they wouldn't be able to sell a lot of seeds anyway. So when we turned on Uniswap, we kind of allowed people to cash out huge amount of seeds, and that was maybe one of the points, or the key points, where the harm started to come to the ecosystem. So I think we should defer this kind of mass sell-off until we are really mature and established, and people are using seeds, and they are, ready to go to this next level. I think this is a key for this relaunch. So yeah, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Ooh, there's a lot of really important points that you triggered, so I'm going to have a long-winded response. One, I think the Uniswap thing was fantastic because it pointed out some problems with their economic model. I don't think it was something to be avoided. We saw what was going to happen because we were doing things that were broken. We're giving large number of seeds to people who didn't pay for those seeds. So they had no reason not to sell them, which is exactly what happened. So yeah, I mean, I think that was just pointing out some of the flaws of how we were doing it. To kind of, I hate going back in time, but the original model for seeds was that we weren't going to pay anyone. Everyone was supposed to get D-seeds for work, which is why most Haifa members got D-seeds for work. It only got changed afterwards, where Haifa's like, well, let's start paying people in seeds too. We started paying out large number of seeds to people who are working for Haifa. So that all came after. And then that's the same thing with funding campaigns, where the seeds community was like, hey, well, let's start using seeds to start paying for our contributions too. And this is where I think it started going in a weird direction, because what we had is more people who wanted to sell seeds because they needed those seeds to pay for rent and stuff than we had people wanting to buy seeds. So we had the price starting to drop. Anyway, I think there's a really cool proposal that has kind of some of the best of both worlds here. And this is some of the really exciting stuff that we're going to be able to come up with. I will share this with you all. I know this is going to be a lot, but bear with me. It's a really cool idea, and we're just kind of putting it together today. It's the idea of rainbow seeds. And what are rainbow seeds? Rainbow seeds are any name token. You can call them whatever you want, but you're able to mint new tokens backed by deferred seeds. So we can maintain the economic balance of seeds itself while still giving liquidity to people who are wanting liquidity. So what does this look like? A region could say, hey, let's get a 1 million seeds grant, a lion's share for this region. They have 1 million deferred seeds now. So these aren't seeds that they can take to Uniswap and sell. These are seeds that are sitting deferred for them. But what they can do now is they can mint 1 million region tokens that are then backed by these deferred seeds. Or at a future date, once these deferred seeds become liquid, they can trade these these region tokens 1-for-1 for these D seeds. But this meets a lot of things, because there's been needs for local communities, and they want to provide liquidity just for their community. But you can't do that with seeds, because anyone can trade seeds, right? But you can do that with your local token. So now, Costa Rica region can create 1 million Costa Rica tokens backed by 1 million D seeds in the Costa Rica region. And then those Costa Rica tokens can go to an exchange where people are providing liquidity just for Costa Rica, right? And then that only Costa Rica tokens are going to be sold for fiat, and then you can create your own circular economics there. So this allows for that circularity that people are talking about. So the benefits of having a local currency with the benefits of having a global network, because if they're all backed by D seeds, we all benefit when the value of D seeds go up, because the value of the backing of that currency is going up globally. So we get the benefits of a global currency with all the benefits of a local currency and local economics. And this was a really simple thing to actually do, is to be able to mint new tokens backed by your D seeds. So this is something that we could do in Seeds 2.0, is people are talking about, yeah, we want liquidity, we want circularity in our communities. We don't want D seeds because we want to be trading them. Great, still get your D seeds, mint your own regional tokens, start, circulating seeds, calling them whatever you want. Heck, you could even call them seeds if you want. You get to make up the name all on your own. And yeah, it has all those benefits, but we can't have all of our seeds be deferred seeds, because we still need to be building liquidity for the seeds token itself, because that's the stage that sets go live, is when we have enough liquidity to trigger that point. So we still need an appropriate amount of seeds in circulation, but we want to make sure that we never have more seeds than we have demand for. So that way, if people are always buying their seeds to bring them into circulation, that we never lose that. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry. I'm confused. I got lost. I just,
That's fun.
and the fun thing is that when I get confused and lost, I get tightness in my belly, and then I can't hear anything. So I'm so I guess I didn't review the document if we were required to review it, and I apologize in advance.
No, not at all.
I'm just kind of, I guess I don't, there's new things like mint and rainbow, and I'm just kind of like, oh my God, that's another thing I have to try to understand. Help. So, anyway.
Long story short, this just gives the ability for communities to create their own local currencies backed by seeds, and to have all the benefits that people are wanting for high liquidity, high circularity, being able to exchange tokens without putting that pressure on seeds. So what Julia was just saying is like, hey, we need to have a rule that you can have seeds, but you can't sell them for fiat. We can't make that rule. If seeds goes on exchanges, well, there's no way to stop them from selling seeds on exchanges. And why should we, right? So that's what's really interesting about having this new token being able to be created and backed by D seeds, is because now this new token is what you're actually exchanging, not seeds anymore. And that new token probably isn't on Uniswap unless you add it there, It's not going to be on exchanges unless that new token is put on exchanges. Right, so it doesn't have the ability for people to cash it out unless that community creates it. But that also gives the ability for communities to create their own exchanges for their own currencies. To say that we want to provide liquidity for Costa Rica, but we don't want Thailand, cashing out all of our liquidity, which has happened. We've had people in Sweden and Costa Rica and a couple other places. Some philanthropists are like, hey, we really want to provide community or money for this region, and we think seeds is great. But once they realize that people anywhere in the globe could actually cash out their liquidity, they're like, oh, well, that's not exactly what we were trying to do. We wanted to provide, money for this community. So being able to create a unique token that's backed by seeds for that community allows people to have that benefit. So anyway, this is just a new proposal that's come off of the back end of what Seeds 2.0 is expressing. Is we heard the need that people wanted liquidity. They wanted to be able to exchange, and DSeeds wouldn't allow that. So this is a way of being able to meet all of those needs. Oh, there's a lot of hands up. So hopefully this wasn't too over the top and it wasn't necessarily the agenda today, but Telma, go for it.
Yes, this is the question I'm holding since the roundtable 1, 2, and 3, and I keep holding the same question, so I want to voice it. And the question is around how we are naming what we are doing. Why do we need to say that we need to relaunch it and fork it? And for me, it's a matter of evolution, as in any process that as we evolve, we learn and we integrate the learnings and we evolve. And because we are still in the pre-launch phase, like we are not, and correct if I'm wrong, we haven't gone live yet, seeds. Although we are in Uniswap, we're still in that phase, like the pre-launch. Maybe I'm mistaken. But for me, like creating 2.0, creating a fork, having a different coin, like the Seeds 2.0 and Seeds 1.0, creates a lot of confusion and creates a feeling of being left behind. If you're in a 2.0, it's like any product that launches a new technology and say we are not building any maintenance process for the old product. And if you love your old product, die with it. We are so sorry, we don't care about this anymore. I'm like making like strong, but just to make the feelings behind, because that I think the reaction, and I could also feel in my body and not being able to recognize in me if is this a good thing, is this a bad thing, am I missing something in the story that I'm not seeing? So I held all these questions and tensions, and I'm still not able to say, this is a good thing. We are moving the right direction. I'm still like listening to different opinions and not knowing. And for me, the question that I'm holding is, can we just evolve and fix and learn from the things that we identified as flaws in the process, fix them, and keep evolving as we were doing? Could that be a story to tell in a way to go?
Yeah, awesome prompts. Lots of responses. So again, I'll hit these things one at a time. It depends. Sure, we can have the cultural story that we're just evolving. I love that. However, I love a little bit more the idea of a relaunch and a fresh start and a completely new thing. And one of the reasons why is from, this was part of the doc and actually removed it. But anyway, it's from a legal perspective. From like the SEC right now is cracking down on a lot of projects and trying to make them illegal if they're too centralized or if they look like a security. I don't think it'll be too difficult, even though Haifa went through every step possible to make sure like Haifa wasn't in control. There was more non-Haifa citizens than there were Haifa citizens, et cetera, et cetera. It went through a lot of legwork to really distance itself from the launch of Seeds. However, it was still Haifa was the main organization. Right now we have a really awesome opportunity because most crypto projects, they build liquidity, they get a lot of value, they get on exchanges well before they actually build community and get to the level of community maturity that we have right now. We did it the exact opposite. We went and we built a lot of community. We didn't give any effort on putting seeds on exchanges and trying to see the number go up. So relaunching it within our context is really easy because we don't have to deal with any centralized exchanges right now and trade out the token. And actually, we don't have to do that on any DEXs either because we have no liquidity there. So it's actually really easy for us to do a fork, where most projects would have a really difficult time, / it's just untenable because of the amount of work it would take. So we're in a fortunate position because doing a refork and doing a launch where it's way more decentralized could benefit us from a legal standpoint and from a cultural standpoint, because more organizations and groups are at the heart of it. So I actually really like the framing of having a really strong, like, nope, Seeds 1.0 is over. We're doing Seeds 2.0. This is a community-led one. We're leaving Haifa behind. Like, all of that really excites me because then it says Seeds is its own thing. It isn't attached to Haifa. It isn't attached to one individual. It's the community relaunching it. I mean, I understand the perceived irony of me being the one to present this, but again, this is supposed to kickstart the conversation for Seed citizens to be like, you're right, this is ours. We get a chance to relaunch this. Let's do that. That's really exciting. In hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have used the word fork, but technically it is, because the citizens never have control over other people's accounts. That's one of the promises of blockchain, is your money can never be stolen. So there's no proposal out there that we could put up to say, hey, we want to take seeds out of this person's account and put them into D-seeds. We can't do that. We can't mess with anyone's balances. So the only way to move balances around, which is what we're proposing, is to do a fork and to do a completely new token, because we do not have the control or ability to move other people's tokens. So technically it has to be a fork if we're talking about changing any balances or changing seeds to D-seeds or anything like that. And the last piece is the idea of go live. Seeds is functional. It's live right now. It could be on exchanges. You can swap it. I wish I would have called go live like go stable or, start of harvest or something else. Like when we were naming go live, we thought it was going to come way sooner than it actually ended up coming. So in hindsight, it was a terrible thing to name it because now there's this illusion that Seeds isn't live yet. But in a lot of cases it is. It's just not necessarily mature. So it's the same thing as, a human. Like, do we say a human's not alive yet because they're an adolescent? Life doesn't start until you're an adult. Some people think that way, but I don't think that's true. There's still a lot of life in Seeds right now, even though it hasn't reached this, I wish I would have called it go stable, moment. I'm going to start calling it that. So anyway, that's a lot of a response there. Is I'm personally biased in this being a Seeds run thing to further distance itself from Haifa, to have all of the Seeds organizations come around and do this relaunch. So that, one reason from a legal perspective, if they look at it, they're like, wow, this was the most decentralized crypto project we've seen. And if we did it this way, we would be the most decentralized crypto project. There hasn't been any out there that's been a collaboration with like 4 or 5 different organizations to launch a token. I haven't seen it. So I think that's really cool. It's a cool story to tell. It will be difficult and fun, but I think we're all kind of up for that. I am. Yeah, so long-winded answer there. But I mean, from a cultural lens, we don't have to look at this like the community forking. So forking is a technical term, it's not a cultural term. So culturally, this absolutely could just be an evolution, the next stage in our process, but certainly one where we get more sovereignty. And that's something else I've heard that, Haifa feels too much of a, like a parental figure or having too much control. So this is the moment where Seeds gets to really decouple itself, create its own identity and relaunch, from those foundations. So I think this is a cool opportunity from that lens. Yeah, that was a lot. Was that helpful, Thelma? Just thumbs up. Yeah, cool. Julio.
I think there are others before me, but Yeah, what I wanted to add is thank you for sharing this on the rainbow seeds. Really excited me. And the one thing I wanted to share. Oh, can you hear me? It's very low. Okay, sorry. Can you hear me better? Okay, sorry. Yeah, so thank you for sharing about the rainbow seeds. It wasn't in the 2.0 proposal. And that's something we could do kind of already, and what's kind of beginning to see with the dues forging their own tokens backed on seeds, and the idea that we had on Renaissance Explorers as each alliance that has deferred seeds could use those seeds to create tokens and backed by those seeds. So that's an amazing idea, and that's truly ingenious. And that's aligned with the idea from Bernard Lietaer with having yin and yang currencies. So you have like one kind of stable, more valuable currency serving as the yang currency. And you have many yin currencies for the communities where they can, do their trades without messing with the global economy kind of thing. So I like this. One idea that I wanted to propose to you, Rieki, is maybe um, I think it's very challenging to do the co-creation of this proposal here with this many people. I mean, of course, we're doing kind of a Q&A session on the proposal, but what I would advise is maybe create one small group and try to come up with a very organized document proposal, and then open that up for questions and do sessions like this. Could be more productive in terms of using everyone's time. But just a suggestion for this to become an exploration group on Renaissance Explorers, like we did with the Seeds Commons. So yeah, that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, quick responses. I see both yang currencies, even seeds and rainbow seeds still seem very yang to me, where something like gratitude seems more yin. So that's where I'm seeing more of the yin stuff come up as other tokens entirely. However, there's something we're seeing in crypto, probably none of you know about this, but one's called Ohm. It's backed by dollars, but each token is backed by $1. However, the token is selling for $300 right now. So people are paying $300 for a token that's backed by $1. So what does this mean? By local currencies, they're going to have their own price. So a community can say, our tokens are worth $1.30. And if the community agrees that they're worth $1.30, even though seeds are only worth 10 cents, then their tokens are worth $1.30. Big asterisk if the entire community agrees, right? But very likely, seeds price is going to be that Schelling point where we're saying your token is backed by this. That's not necessarily the price of each local currency. So that's what gets really interesting here. Is this just guarantees how much you could trade your seeds back for in the future? But if seeds is going in a good trajectory and we know it's going to reach $1.30 in that future, where you're going to be able to trade your token back for seeds, maybe communities are willing to, see this, rainbow seed, whatever they call it, being worth $1.30. We don't know. So this is where it gets really interesting, is communities do get to have their own type of community currency and their own value behind them, knowing that they're just backed by seeds in the future. On this co-creation, I think there's going to be a lot of groups like this. Satya, John, they just recommended and said, hey, we want to host a session. I really hope a lot more people do that we have a lot of gatherings. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of ones running asynchronously. I think the one thing we do need to bring together, though, is just comments in the Google Doc / informed proposals, like big changes to the actual project, putting that in the discourse forum. So just as a response to the discourse. And I think that's where I want the most structure to be. If you want to add something or subtract something from the proposal, put it in the discourse and say, hey, I would like to add this, have your reason why, and exactly what it is. That way we're keeping track of everything that's being suggested, or just have a conversation in the doc. So for tracking and capturing everything in those two places, I think that'll be really organized, but let's have a lot of conversations. Maybe Renaissance Explorers will set up a group. Maybe other groups will talk about totally different relaunch proposals. I think all of that's alive. So we have that Seeds 2 channel and Seeds are in the Discord forum right now. Anyone's welcome to propose to set up a call and talk about this. It shouldn't and doesn't need to be just me kind of running these things, because this isn't mine anymore. Like, my proposal's been put out there. I can keep, evolving this, but this really needs to be us kind of coming together and making it right. So anyway, this is an invitation that if you feel excited about this, take lead. Last thing, I heard this really great quote yesterday about DAOs. It's like, who's a leader of a DAO? And whoever's leading a DAO is the person who knows the next step. So if you see the next step to take, well, you're the leader. So take lead, take the next step, and invite people to come with you. And that's how we can start self-organizing. So if you see the next step to take, then take it. Cool. So Apostle, Stefan, and Yao, I'll let you all three go, and then I'll respond after each of you have had a chance to speak.
Thanks, Rieki. I have 4 or 5 questions. We can have a conversation here probably for 20 minutes. But yeah, some of my biggest concerns are how is the proposal governed? Because our experiment with trying to evolve the game guide is that if you don't have a clear structure of evolving the document, like accountability and responsibility and membrane about who's allowed to evolve it and who's not allowed to evolve it and how decisions are made, it becomes a big mess, basically. And this document is more important than the comms document, the game guide, or anything else in the ecosystem, because it's kind of like this big change, which kind of like blocks the development of a couple of parts of the ecosystem. So yeah, how is the proposal, how is this document evolved? Who has the authority to make that decision?
Let me respond to that real quick. So I put up this particular proposal, and I've been the one that's been the chief editor of it. I would like to have a group of 3 or 5 of us that are the co-editors of this, and I believe some people from the previous council would be able to join me. So let me ask them first. So my immediate answer is I'm going to be the one editing this proposal. However, and I hope more proposals actually come up for Seeds 2.0, but we don't have to do that if we're coming up with full alignment. I would like to have a group of 3 or 5, and if you feel really strong and you really want to be part of like editing this, just reach out to me and we can create a group of like 3 or 5 of us that's small, that's actually taking feedback and editing it into a cohesive form. So I'm not going to be making any changes to this proposal that would fundamentally change what I'm trying to accomplish, because then it's not a proposal I'm going to get behind anymore. So if something like that's going to come up, it'll be a separate proposal. And then the citizens get to choose between multiple proposals. And that could be really cool, is if maybe we have 3 different proposals and then we see which one gets the most support, right? So yeah, that's one way of going about this right now. It's having a small group that can actually edit this so it doesn't get too crazy.
Yeah, but basically if there are 2 or 3 proposals that the citizens choose which one to evolve, to vote about, then whoever, like, what I'm thinking is that if you get voted down, you still go ahead and create that fork as a contested fork, right? And the other possible proposals will be the same. Like if they voted down, they can always like go ahead and create their own contested forks if they want to. Is that correct? Yeah.
And if each one of them is like 30, 30, 30, and they're irreconcilable, then maybe we split into 3. And that's how these systems evolve. And that's how diversity is created in nature too. You see this evolutionary fractaling. So I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. If we have irreconcilable differences, awesome, let's split into 2. I think what's so destructive that nation states try to do today is there's 2 like ideologically incompatible communities being forced to stay together. if we go through this process and figure out we're, ideologically incompatible, I doubt it, but let's say we are, then maybe it is important for us to actually split and create two. And that might be the outcome here. But yeah, anyone can fork seeds. You need to have the technical understanding of how to do that. So I don't think that's actually fair to say anyone can do it. And there needs to be a critical mass of support. If I and 3 engineers fork seeds, but no one chooses to come with us, then it's a totally useless fork. I'm sitting there with my new seeds and I'm all alone. So if no one came with me, then it's a stupid fork. So I'm not going to just say I'm going to fork seeds and do whatever and forget the community, because the community is the currency. Like, the currency is nothing without a community. So I was just putting it in there to set a stage saying, like, this can happen even if it's contested. But if it's like 90% is against this, then there's absolutely no reason for me to fork it. It would have to be like, 30% is against it and 70% is for it. Then it's like, okay, well, we're going to go for it anyway. That sort of thing.
Yeah, and that puts me on the other point, which is very close to this. I wrote about this a little bit in the forum, but it's basically, even if like 90% are for and 10% are against, or maybe 20% are neutral and 10% are against, or something like this. If we keep the same governance structure as we have right now with the same citizens, these 10% can basically vote down every proposal in the Seeds 2.0. And then even if the fork like comes up and it's goes live, it can be like, so either you have to change the foundational structure of Seeds, or I don't know how to actually work in that situation. It's a very unique.
I want to stop us getting into weird hypotheticals, because we don't know. And if that happens, then we can cross the governance fork possibility in the future. But we don't have that issue now, so I don't think we need to continue down that one. The last thing I wanted to share real quick is we can't have both ecosystems running in parallel. So a lot of people don't know this, but Litecoin is a fork of Bitcoin. And then Litecoin adopted all of the early tech that people were proposing for Bitcoin, but that was just having a really hard trouble going through Bitcoin. So what happened was Litecoin was the more advanced, faster moving version of Bitcoin, right? So maybe a lot of people don't know this. So Bitcoin then grew a reputation as being very unchangeable and very sturdy, and people were expecting nothing to really happen to it. And that was the strong part of Bitcoin. And then Litecoin got this reputation of being fast moving and really evolving and forward thinking. You see the same thing in like Polkadot, for example. So there's Polkadot and then there's Kusama. So Kusama is a mirror of Polkadot, but it's putting things up faster and it's being cheaper, etc. And you see this all throughout the crypto space, where you're starting to see these parallels with successful ecosystems. I think the same thing could happen with Seeds, 1.0 and 2.0. So some proposals have come up that says, okay, well, with Seeds 1, why don't we start go live right now? Let's start the harvest. Let's start using that. Let's try to stabilize the price at 10 cents and see what happens. And we can do that. So we can have Seeds 1.0 seeds that are existing. We start the harvest. We have UBI experiments. Like, that's a place where we can experiment more. And then we have these, other seeds, which maybe we call like light seeds or, sturdy seeds or whatever. We would have to give them a new name. But these are the ones that have this, sound tokenomics, that people, if they're wanting to invest in something and have a secure investment, okay, buy these sturdy seeds or whatever we call them. But if you're more into the experiment, then, you have Seeds 1.0. So there's a possibility for having them both exist and have one be more experimental. Because the problem is, if we're all experimental, people don't want to risk their money. And that's actually what we're seeing, and why our sales started slowing down, is people are showing up and being like, well, you want me to spend $20,000 to get seeds, but I see this proposal asking for $100,000. Like, that doesn't seem very good. And actually people were telling me this. They're like, hey, I'm looking at some of these proposals and these seem weird. Like, I don't trust my money in this ecosystem, right? So that's the thing. Like, we need to have one that is economically sound for people to trust their money in. So we can do that. We can build both. We can have economic sound seeds and we can have experimental seeds. And, I don't think it has to be that big of a chasm, but, that's what's cool here, is we can have both kind of exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we are in this kind of like space that we have a governance system, and most other cryptocurrencies do not have the same governance system that we have. It's kind of yeah. Okay. And just a very technical question about the DSeeds, because we're very focused on DSeeds and looking at the DSeeds. How are the DSeeds managed? Like when you get DSeeds, when an account gets DSeeds, are they theirs, or is there some other way that they're technically managed? Like who?
Okay, yeah. Last one, and then I want to make sure Stephen has a chance to speak, and I can answer any of your questions after this too. So DSeeds, if you got DSeeds from any way other than an alliance, they're yours. They can't be taken away from you, and they'll be given to you after the go live point through the harvest. So what's nice about DSeeds and how seeds were designed is that only seeds are coming into circulation if there's demand for them. So that was the original model. Is, seeds are only coming in when people buy them through the sale, or people are being gifted a small amount with an invite, with the assumption that people are invited with $50 worth of seeds. They're not just going to turn around and sell them. Some will, but that's inconsequential. It was never part of the design for $20,000 worth of seeds to go to one person for them to potentially sell. So that's what we're trying to reinstantiate with Seeds 2.0. But then after go live, all the DSeeds come in through the harvest, and the harvest works that we're bringing more seeds into circulation when there's more demand for them. So that's how then the seeds are being released and brought back in. Otherwise, other projects that they lock up a bunch of tokens, and then they have this unlock point. They have this race to the bottom, where you get your seeds first, and then you want to sell them before anyone else because you're going to get the highest price because it's about to crash. We wanted to get rid of that game mechanic. So that's why we just slowly release DSeeds only when there's new demand for them. So there really is no drive to just turn around and sell them right away. So yeah, DSeeds are going to be slowly released after go live when there's demand for seeds. That slowly, I don't know, maybe it takes 6 months because there's a lot of demand for seeds and we release them all within a month period. Maybe it takes 2 years because it's a slow growth economy. We don't know how long it will take after go live to release the seeds. But anyway, the last piece is alliance seeds that are issued through an alliance can be taken back if the citizens, revert that proposal. So if the ones that had voted up previously on it, they choose to vote down on it after, because the alliance didn't actually follow through with what they said they're going to do, then they can lose those deferred seeds. But if you earn them through a referral or through doing work through, one of the organizations, then they're yours. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. And the alliances cannot actually move the DSeeds into personal accounts. That should make sense.
Alliances can't.
Yeah. It's just,
alliances will issue their own tokens that have a claim on it, the same way we're talking about these rainbow seeds. But the thing is, if that alliance organization doesn't actually, follow through with what they said they do, and they get their alliance taken away, then all the tokens you had to have a claim on those DSeeds are now worth nothing because that alliance lost its seeds.
Yeah. Okay.
So say Renaissance Explorers, they go out there and say, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, give us 1 million seeds for an alliance. We're like, yep, great, we give you those 1 million seeds. They don't follow through with any of that, and they just run off and do nothing. Then the citizens could be like, hey, we're going to take those 1 million seeds back. And all of the tokens that Renaissance Explorers gave are now worthless because they're not backed by any seeds.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Stephen.
Yeah, Rieki, I'd like to compliment you on your courage with actually taking this step and saying, oh, what we've been doing, it hasn't been working. And that takes a lot of courage. So I'd like to compliment you on that. And doing this whole relaunch Seeds 2.0, I see it as a great step forward to be able to change. And I look forward to eventually possibly 3.0 or 4.0 if that's needed, because no one has all the answers to begin with, and it's a journey. I'm very curious about it, and that's why I'm here. I also wonder a little bit about the concept of, like if you look at fiat currencies and cryptocurrencies, there are principal differences between them. Fiat currencies are inflationary. Most cryptocurrencies are deflationary, and as I understand it, seeds is no exception. It starts off with a low value, and you want to increase the value of each seed. So there's an incentive for people to come in early into it, but that also means that it becomes exclusionary, where people who come in later, for whatever reason, don't get the same value for it. And a lot of those things are not based on their wanting to come in later. It'll be partly based on them not knowing about it, or like Michael has been involved with people who don't have the electronic means to partake in this, which means that those people are automatically excluded right now. I would be interested in seeing a variety where instead of an inflationary or deflationary, we had a stable value currency, which can then people can come in at any time period, and the value that they put in the currency becomes stable instead of being inflationary or deflationary.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. It's great having you here. I've seen some of your work and a lot of your comments on the game guide and stuff too. So awesome. Quick responses. That is literally seeds after go live. So why I think it's applicable and appropriate to have a deflationary currency, i.e. an appreciating currency for the first stage, is because of the risk. At this stage of seeds and earlier stages, there's a risk it's worth nothing at all. So in order to compensate that risk and for people to want to take that risk, they don't want to just stabilize their value, and they want to be compensated for that risk, and that's reasonable. So that's what we're doing in that first stage. But the go live point is when we're saying, okay, risk is actually heavily reduced right now, that we don't really have a risk that this thing isn't going to be successful. That is the go live point. There's high liquidity, there's big community, people are accepting it. It's an immature economy, but it's working. So when we get to that point, then we say, okay, now we have a stable, steady state economy. But relative to inflationary currencies like the dollar, it's going to still look like it's going up in value because the dollar is losing value. But what we're trying to do after go live is have a steady state currency. And then the real reward comes through the harvest, which is getting paid seeds, which is all the new seeds we're creating. And that's how we keep it steady state. And then at that point, anyone can join. And we have the percentile distributions to make it more equitable. So if you join at any point, you're not being like excluded because you weren't an early founder. Everyone's getting that same kind of equal opportunity, not equal outcome. So depending on when, yeah, anyway, so that's what the percentile and the contribution scores are all about, is to make it more equitable how we distribute the harvest after we launch, so that people can join and then start getting the benefit through earning seeds, rather than seeing the price appreciate a whole bunch. So that's kind of the difference. Is right now the big benefit is the price of seed will go up if we're successful. After go live, the big benefit is you get more seeds as we're more successful, rather than the price really jacking up. But again, that depends, because price is always relative to something else. So dollars, if you look at the graph right now, it's a hockey stick. It went from like 4 trillion up to 20 trillion. It's insane. 80% of money in circulation right now is created in the last 2 years. It's enormous. So if you look at that, by the time that inflation really kicks in, we can have an inverse graph. So seeds, if it really is a steady state currency relative to dollars, when inflation really hits dollars, if it ever does, it would look like it's going up in price a lot compared to dollars. So it's hard. It's, everyone's going to be like, hey, I thought seeds was supposed to be stable. Shouldn't it stay at $1? And then you have to explain that, dollars aren't actually stable. They're losing their value. What we'd love to see is, someone can price their labor in X number of seeds, and for that to be the same value year after year. We always see the posters of like, hey, you can get this 4-bedroom house for $15,000 back in like 19 something or whatever. And you see the loss of that currency over time. What we'd love to see with seeds is that over time, it's the same value over years and years and years.
Yeah, like you can buy 1 kilo of salt with seeds now, and you can buy 1 kilo of salt with seeds in 10 years.
Unless, technological improvements reduce the price. But that would be the idea economically, is, prices are only going up or down if there's other, factors. It's not the currency losing its value that's, causing that to change.
But that means that that's after go live.
That's after go live, but we could have go live right now with Seeds 1.0. And I'm really pushing for that because I think that's cool. I think we could launch go live with the current seeds and then relaunch, the 2.0 and call them something else. Because then we can start that steady state right now. There's a large part of the community that's saying, no, we do want the harvest. We do want to have a better than free currency and start circulating. We're tired of waiting for go live. And I hear that. So why don't we can do both. So we can start a steady state seeds at the, it's saying it's 10 cents, but it's probably worth like 5 is what I see people paying for it. But who knows? Let's start stabilizing it there and seeing how it goes. Thoughts? But that's not in the proposal right now. These are just ideas. Sorry, Stephen, I keep cutting you off. I'll send you back. Yeah.
No problem. I asked a question, you answered it. That's not cutting off. Yeah, I'll put my hand down for now, and if I come up with something else, I'll put it up again. Thank you for answering my questions.
I didn't give a timeline for this call. However, it was originally planned to be an hour, but we can do an hour 15. So I say let's go for 8 more minutes. We'll have Yao and Paulino, and then we can call it a good session. We covered a lot. So Yao.
Thank you, Rieki. Hello, everyone. Let me breathe. I want to share about that with seeds and with my community. I'm a friend of mine that's a vendor. He started to accept seeds. So he has now almost like 8,000 seeds, and I have to maybe be his advisor. And I explained to him that he couldn't more accept seeds. It's not the proposal, the step that we are now in seeds, but he's okay with that. He's believing the movement. But I was thinking, what will be the result of these 8,000 seeds that he accepts with the price that is in the passport, and how he can use these seeds, 1.0 seeds, for what he wants to do. It's create incentives for the regenerative actions in our community. And yeah, because one thing that crossed my mind, it's hard to me to think to use seeds 1.0 for building communities and making the go live already, and then it's not what we are actually the fundamentals of the seeds is not in the 1.0, but is in the 2.0 seeds. It's how you can transfer these values into most easy ways for the communities itself. And yeah, I can elaborate more on my question, but I share what it's my situation here where I live, and how we can think for these seeds that he accepts as a marketplace now to not be with this gap of that he sell products, but he can now use the seeds. And yeah, I would love to get some ideas. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, quick response there. Seeds is difficult because it's building on the shoulders of giants. So we always have to kind of explain what the giants went through. So I'm going to keep doing that. So if we do seeds currently and we have go live and we keep all that and we launch this new token, then we're just going to have 2 tokens that are going to behave differently. And a lot of people would look at that and be like, oh, well, then isn't seeds 1.0 worthless and all the value is in seeds light or whatever we call the new token? Not necessarily. And that's not at all what happened in the crypto space. There's 100-something forks of Bitcoin, all of which still have value right now. And a lot of people are looking at Bitcoin forking and being like, hey, you're just going to duplicate everyone who owns Bitcoin and give them Bitcoin Cash. Well, one of them is going to be worthless. but they ended up both having a lot of value and just going two different directions and having their own benefits behind them. Same thing with Bitcoin and Litecoin. And Bitcoin, Dogecoin is a fork of Litecoin. So when Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and all three of them have tremendous amounts of value still. So it's hard to say what would actually happen because again, it's the community is what gives it value. So if the community finds more value in this steady state currency that's a better than free, token that's already starting to stabilize, could be that Seeds 1.0 actually gets more value because there's more demand for that currency than there is for the 2.0 or whatever we call this new Seeds. So that's where it's just really interesting. We don't know how things.
Ya, pero sí no quiero llegarle. Él es una persona que está.
I'm assuming that's not for me, so I'm going to mute that. Was that helpful, Yao? And if you have a more pointed question, just put it in the Seeds 2 chat so I can make sure I answer that for your friend. Paulino, I don't know how to say that, so maybe you can also start with saying how to.
Yes, it's fine. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So according to what I've understood, so I'm assuming that after Go Live events, Seeds will be already having stability. And actually, we want to shift from Seeds 1.0 to 2.0 just because there is something that we need to improve so that we reach the goal that we want to be one day. And so I'm just asking myself, so when we're gonna reach the Go Live event in this in this Seeds 2.0, so how are we going to shift back to the Seeds 0.1? Because I'm talking about the low tech sectors or region like Uganda, Nakivale refugee camp, where it needs more commitment and more structure in order to use Seeds, just because not everyone who have access to internet and not everyone who is familiar with technology. And so how are we going to shift to the 6.1 because it's we have already familiar with this system, and I'm just trying to understand that the 2.0 is gonna take too long in this sector so that people understand well.
In the current proposal of the Seeds 2 relaunch, we're not addressing the technological barriers of how to get communities that are low tech better on board. And maybe that's something that we can address in this. If there's a barrier that's saying we don't want to use Seeds until they're better than free, until the go live's occurring and until they're more stable, then maybe it actually makes sense to have Seeds 1.0 have go live. I've heard some people actually say that we'll only start using Seeds once they're more stabilized right now and I could start pricing my stuff in it. Otherwise, I'm just going to wait until the future. If we have a strong part of the community that's feeling that way right now, then it makes a lot of sense to, have go live start with Seeds 1.0 and then launch a new token. And if we do decide to go that route, then maybe we can talk about how we might merge them back together in the future and have some type of reintegration process. But that's if there's a lot of demand for that. So I don't want to keep going down the whole of, what happens if we have 1 and 2, unless we decide that we think that's really great to have both. And maybe we can just discuss that in the Discord chat. If you are either way on that, we can have that dialogue there. But yeah, it's a huge thing. How do we get people who are, low tech to be better involved? I think the real solution is getting phones. There's a lot of cheap phones that still work. It's not a huge cost. And once Seed starts getting a lot more value behind it, that's how I see us being able to bring those communities in. I think we might be tripping over ourselves if we're trying to, bring in people who are low tech right now, because it's difficult. But this is my perspective. Other people feel really called to do this, and I know there's solutions out there today for those who are really motivated to take that on. But I think maybe the simplest way is just we could work with some phone partners and provide cheap phones. And one of them, if anyone's really interested, is we're starting to collaborate with Kanatha, and apparently they have a partnership alliance with Mark's nodding his head. So if you want to, maybe we can work with Anatha. This is something you're really excited about, is bringing people who don't already have phones and technology into this conversation. Let's partner with Anatha to do that. Let's get them a phone. Let's be able to bring them into Anatha and Seeds. And I think that's the simplest way. But trying to figure out like low tech solutions, like how do we get Seeds to work on a credit card or something like that, I think it's an enormous amount of work. And by the time we finished building those tools, the people would probably already have a smartphone by that point. So it's like, you know, why did we do the effort? It's probably because it's a little bit after 11 and my brain's dying. So I'm going to pause it there. And we're at 11:15. So anyway, this was a great conversation. We went through a lot of weird different points. I'm actually going to apologize now because I think I added way more complexity than I took away, but that is the nature of what we're dealing with right now. So, you know, it is what it is. But the most clarity is in the document. So if you haven't read that yet, I highly recommend it. Comments are turned on now. So if anything's confusing, just highlight a section and say, this confuses me. Could you explain more? And I can go through and, you know, elaborate and, you know, reformat sentences on anything that doesn't make sense. So yeah, we can have that conversation on the Google Doc itself. Just for clarity, we have about 2 more minutes because then we can end at a nice solid number. So does anyone else have anything they want to put into this space before we close out today? Michael, you look like you have a thought. Is that true? Nope. Okay. Anyone? Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, I hear you say we are adding a lot more, you are adding a lot more complexity, which I think it is true. For me, it doesn't feel like a lot more complexity. I think I've been reading through it, but for the community as a whole, it is a lot more complexity to take on. And I think we would really gain a lot if we also look a lot into how can we separate this using Seeds from being into the complexity of Seeds, because I think right now with this process that we are doing of creating this fork is creating a lot of chaos that is for a lot of people chaos that they don't really care about the changes that are being made, because Seeds is still going to be fine after these changes. It's going to be some changes that make sense, make things more equitable. And for a lot of people, they are really scary because it's so much complexity added to the story. So I think that is something we can really win on, to see how can we make these type of changes without having to share this complexity as we are doing now with the whole community.
Ooh, actually, thank you. That's a perfect way for us to end this, because I think that's the most valuable thing we're doing here. So from my perspective, I've heard this a couple places where it's like, what we're doing here is building a currency. It's like, not really. What we're doing here is building a community that's on a learning journey to build a regenerative economy. That's what I see. So all the complexity, all of the conversations, like that is, you know, why I'm here. That's what I'm doing here. You know, I'm not necessarily here to replace the dollar. Like, that's boring. You know, there's a lot of projects that are out there just building a stable currency. Like, if you want to do that, there's already tokens doing that better. So I'd say maybe this isn't the right community. But if you're instead wanting to be on a learning journey to rediscover what economics means and how to make decisions and go through this chaos, like, that's kind of why we're here, to go through the muck. It's kind of shit, you know, if I'm being honest, like, it's a lot. But that's why I'm here, is to, you know, go through that evolutionary process. It's constantly challenging me and I love it. You know, that's why I signed up for all of this. So I'd love to invite that into the community, that going through this collective, you know, chaos to come up with something as a whole, like, that could be the point. And if we look at that as the point, and, you know, tokens and currencies and gratitude and all this stuff we're coming up with are just tools that we keep designing. And as we just saw, you know, brought forward today, we can come up with rainbow seeds. That's a totally new token that just got ideated today, and that's something that we can bring into existence. And that's what this community can do, is we can come together and maybe we obsolete the concept of seeds altogether in 2 years. I thought it would take us maybe 10 years before we did that. I don't know. At the rate that we're going, we might actually obsolete, the entire designs of the current system within 4. We don't know. But what we're really building and what should stay stable is this coherence, this community, this understanding, this ability to go through this complexity and come out at the other end with better decisions. It's still an ongoing experiment, and we don't know if we're going to make it or not. But as long as we don't give up, then we're winning. So anyway, I'll leave it with that. Thank you all for sharing this time with me. I think we're going to keep these conversations going and just keep a regular pace so we make progress. I do think this is one of the most alive things right now, talking about our relaunch. So that's great. And it's something for us to really focus our energy on and hone our skills of collective creation and see if we can come together to redesign or relaunch. This could be a lot of fun. So anyway, join Satya and John on tomorrow's call. It'll be at the same time this one started in the same link. So if you want to join us, then I'll see you all in about 22 and a half hours. So peace and love. Feel free to unmute yourself and say goodbye.
Thanks, Rieki. Thanks, everyone. Sleep well.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye, you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Gracias.
James.
Hi, Walter. Hi, Julio. Bye, Bart. Bye, Michael.
Bye, Mark.
Bye, Mark. Bye, everyone.
Ciao. Bye,
Bye,
Mark.
Mark.
Nice to see everyone.
Bye, Nadim. Bye, Bella.
Cheers.